There's a quiet moment, often ignored, when your pursuit of creation begins to close the very door you're trying to open. The more you reach, the farther it moves, like light bending away from the observer. You call it desire, but underneath is a pulse of lack, a signal that tells the field, I don't have. Each intention wrapped in tension distorts coherence, yet when the chase exhausts itself, a stillness emerges. Within that stillness, alignment happens not through effort but recognition. The moment the wave remembers it was never separate from the ocean it was trying to touch. Every act of wanting carries a frequency, and that frequency does not hide. The field listens to it, translates it, and mirrors it back with precision. When the core of a desire vibrates with absence, the quantum field responds in kind. It multiplies the experience of not yet, amplifying the sensation that something essential remains missing. This is not punishment or resistance, it is pure coherence. The field does not judge, it reflects. Desire, in its raw form, is not the enemy. It is the first spark that signals awareness expanding beyond its current boundary. But once that spark becomes obsession, once it ties its identity to what is still unmanifested, the energy shifts, the focus tightens, the body contracts. Breathing becomes shallower, attention narrows, and the nervous system begins to pulse with the faint rhythm of scarcity. Even as one visualizes abundance, the signal emitted is coded with effort. That is the paradox. The more vividly you want something, the more clearly the field perceives the gap between you and it. The emotional charge that fuels the desire becomes the very data that defines its delay. The sensation of wanting to change reality actually affirms that it is not yet changed. This is why those who force manifestation through constant mental rehearsal often feel fatigue instead of creation. Their intention collides with the frequency of striving. Imagine sound traveling through a room. If two notes vibrate in dissonance, the interference pattern creates turbulence in the air. The same happens within the human field. When thought, emotion, and body do not vibrate in agreement, they generate incoherence. That incoherence does not destroy potential, it merely disperses it. Energy that could move in one direction begins to oscillate in many, cancelling its own amplitude. The result feels like stagnation or the illusion that nothing is happening. In truth, everything is happening, but the signal is mixed. The vibration of lack is not loud, yet it is persistent. It speaks through subtle sensations, the heaviness behind visualization, the need to check whether something is working, the impatience that creeps in when silence stretches longer than expected. Each of these is feedback from the field, showing where alignment has fractured. At its root, lack is not a condition of not having, it is a condition of forgetting. Forgetting that existence itself is already whole, that every potential already exists within the same quantum framework that sustains your breath. The illusion of separation between me and what I want is what generates tension. The mind perceives a distance, and that imagined distance becomes the very vibration the universe echoes back. To sense this directly, one only needs to pause the chase for a moment. Feel what happens in the body when you imagine your greatest desire not as something to gain, but as something that has never been apart from you. The first seconds might feel like emptiness, the nervous system searching for its usual pursuit. Yet if you stay, if you breathe into the absence of effort, a different texture begins to form. The desire doesn't vanish, it changes temperature, it softens, it becomes an inner resonance rather than an outer hunt. From that state, manifestation stops being an act of pulling and becomes one of remembering. The frequency of lack fades, replaced by coherence. You can notice it in the body. Shoulders lower, breathing expands, the mind's chatter loses volume. Awareness stretches wider than the question of how or when. In that widening, the field senses a new signal, one that carries the vibration of completion. This is why so many traditions speak of gratitude not as a moral virtue but as a vibrational correction. Gratitude reconfigures the internal circuitry from scarcity to sufficiency. It tells the field, I recognize what already is. And the field, bound by resonance, mirrors that recognition. But gratitude only works when it's genuine, when it emerges from the body's sense of enoughness, not as a trick to get more. Forced gratitude still carries the scent of lack, and the field cannot be deceived. When you begin to recognize lack not as a flaw, but as information, the game changes. Each moment of frustration becomes a signal pointing to misalignment, not failure. The question shifts from, "Why isn't it working?" to, "What vibration am I broadcasting?" That inquiry alone begins to dissolve resistance. Awareness reclaims the energy once spent on pursuit and redirects it toward presence. The subtle echo of lack can't be silenced through affirmation or willpower. It quiets only when met with truth, the realization that wanting something intensely is not the same as being ready for it vibrationally. Readiness is not effort, it is coherence. It's the state where your thoughts, emotions, and physiology tell the same story. No contradiction, no inner tug of war. When this coherence is reached, the field responds effortlessly, because there is no longer a separate you trying to make reality happen. There is only a shared rhythm between observer and observed, a seamless communication where intention and manifestation are one gesture. The vibration of lack dissolves not through more wanting, but through deeper recognition. What you seek has always been part of the frequency you emit. The real transformation begins there, not in the creation of new outcomes, but in the dissolution of the illusion that they were ever missing. Effort has long been celebrated as the key to transformation. From early education to personal growth teachings, we are taught that persistence equals progress, that to work harder is to move closer to what we want. But in the quantum sense, effort often masks a subtler imbalance. What appears as dedication can, beneath the surface, be resistance wearing discipline's clothing. The vibration of strain tells the field that harmony has not yet been reached. The field listens to what we are, not to what we try to be. The invisible error lies in confusing motion with movement. The mind loves the sensation of doing. It provides the illusion of control. When you are constantly affirming, visualizing, scripting, strategizing, you may feel productive. Yet if all of it stems from anxiety about what would happen if you stopped, then the engine driving that effort is not alignment, but fear. The need to constantly push reality signals mistrust in its natural intelligence. In this state, energy begins to fragment. The will pulls one way, intuition another. The current that could flow smoothly through you becomes turbulent, bouncing between hope and doubt. Alignment, on the other hand, feels less like striving and more like remembering. It's the quiet awareness that every creation has its rhythm, and that rhythm doesn't require your constant interference. To align is not to manipulate outcomes, it is to adjust your own coherence until the outcome has no choice but to appear. That adjustment rarely happens through more action. It happens through awareness. Awareness of where tension hides, of where wanting turns into control. The mind equates stillness with stagnation, yet in the language of the field, stillness is a signal of precision. When your internal noise subsides, when the pulse of "I must" dissolves, the frequency you emit becomes singular, clear. The field doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to purity of signal. That's why moments of surrender often precede spontaneous alignment. The instant you stop wrestling with reality, coherence reorganizes itself. Imagine two tuning forks placed side by side. Strike one and the other begins to vibrate without touch. This is resonance. Alignment is that same phenomenon within consciousness. The clearer your frequency, the less you need to strike anything. The field vibrates with you. Effort, however, introduces distortion. When you hit the fork repeatedly, too hard, the tone becomes noise. The clarity that would call reality into harmony gets buried beneath the sound of striving. It's easy to confuse this with laziness or inaction. But quantum alignment is not passivity, it's attunement. True attunement often demands more honesty than labor. It asks you to feel where your actions stem from. Do they arise from connection or from urgency? From openness or from fear of delay? Every choice made from contraction reinforces separation. Every choice made from presence reinforces unity. The difference is invisible to the eye but unmistakable in vibration. This is why people often manifest fleeting results through forced intention. The temporary surge of energy creates ripples, but because the source remains divided, the result cannot stabilize. You may attract what you want for a moment, yet the same pattern of effort soon pushes it away. Sustainable manifestation cannot exist where control dominates. Control is the mind's attempt to replace trust with technique, but the quantum field is not impressed by technique. It responds to coherence, and coherence cannot be faked. When you observe without trying to steer, your energy reorganizes. The body begins to follow a slower rhythm. Thoughts lose their urgency. You start to feel a quiet confidence, not because you have proof, but because proof is no longer needed. This is the shift from effort to alignment, a reversal of authority. Instead of trying to convince the field of what you want, you become the evidence of it. The invisible error becomes visible in subtle moments. The pause before taking another action, the impulse to fix something that might not need fixing, the inner dialogue that whispers, "If I stop, it will all fall apart." That whisper is the residue of linear conditioning, the belief that cause must precede effect, that everything must be earned through strain. But the field does not operate linearly. Its logic is simultaneity, not sequence. What you call manifestation is the synchronization of frequencies, not the reward for hard work. To live from that understanding is to shift the meaning of effort itself. Physical action still has a place, but it becomes an extension of coherence rather than compensation for misalignment. The doing follows being, not the other way around. You no longer push reality forward. You walk beside it. Every step arises from a deeper knowing that life already contains the structure of fulfillment. You are simply tuning to it. One way to sense whether you are in effort or alignment is through the body's feedback. When the action feels heavy, tight, or urgent, it usually carries the vibration of control. When it feels fluid, time expands, breath deepens. You act without self-consciousness because the self is no longer the driver. It becomes the instrument through which the field plays. That sensation is unmistakable. There is movement but no friction. The paradox is that alignment often produces far greater results than force ever could, yet it cannot be pursued for that reason. To seek alignment as a strategy to manifest faster is to reintroduce effort through the back door. Alignment must be chosen for its own sake, for the coherence it brings, for the peace that precedes outcomes. When you live from that space, manifestation becomes a natural echo rather than a goal. The invisible error dissolves the moment you realize there is nothing to earn from the universe. You are not a beggar at the gates of creation, nor a worker trying to prove worthiness through strain. You are a participant in an orchestra that responds to vibration, not to volume. The field does not need your push, it needs your precision. And precision comes from quiet clarity, not from noise disguised as effort. When you stop mistaking movement for alignment, manifestation begins to move toward you, not as reward, but as recognition. The field mirrors the ease you embody, translating coherence into form. What once required exhausting pursuit begins to unfold with a strange grace, as though reality had been waiting all along for you to stop trying so hard to control its rhythm. Control is a form of interference disguised as mastery. It appears noble, focused, determined, responsible, but beneath its surface lies a subtle distrust in the intelligence of the field. The human mind seeks order, predictability, assurance. The quantum field, however, moves in patterns of probability, not certainty. It flows through infinite variables, adjusting itself according to coherence. When control enters, the flow collapses into rigidity. What could have unfolded through resonance becomes confined within mental architecture. The irony of control is that it always begins with fear. Fear of loss, of unpredictability, of non-fulfillment. To control something is to confess a lack of faith in its innate organization. When we attempt to direct the field with commands, affirmations, or rigid visualization schedules, we often project anxiety masked as intention. The mind claims to be manifesting, but its frequency reveals contraction. It is as if the current of a river were forced through a pipe, still water but no longer alive. Quantum manifestation is not about dominance over the field, but about partnership with it. The field responds not to force, but to fidelity. The fidelity between what you believe, what you feel, and what you allow. When any of those wavers, coherence breaks and the field mirrors that fracture. Control, being rooted in insecurity, disrupts fidelity by introducing a false hierarchy, the self as commander, the universe as subordinate. This model may work in mechanical systems, but it collapses in living dynamics. The quantum field does not obey, it harmonizes. Think of coherence as music. Each frequency contributes to the symphony of manifestation. Control acts like a musician who insists on playing louder to ensure being heard, unaware that the harmony depends on listening, not volume. The louder the insistence, the more dissonance arises. The field must then retune itself to restore equilibrium, often delaying what could have emerged effortlessly. This is why manifestations sometimes appear only after we abandon them. The moment control releases, resonance returns. The body senses this interference long before the mind admits it. The tightening in the chest, the shallow breath, the repetitive loop of "I must make this happen," these are physiological markers of control attempting to override flow. The nervous system becomes the battlefield between surrender and fear. It sends mixed signals to the field. One frequency declares trust, the other transmits urgency. The result is static, not creation. When the field perceives incoherence, it cannot deliver clarity. It responds with probability that matches the signal it receives, fragmented, uncertain, hesitant. What appears as nothing happening is often the field pausing, recalibrating to interpret a contradictory message. Every time the mind intervenes to accelerate results, it resets the wave function, forcing the field to start reorganizing again. This is why sustained control leads to fatigue. The system is constantly rebuilding the structure that impatience keeps breaking. True manifestation operates through synchrony, not command. Synchrony arises when your frequency becomes transparent enough for the field to flow through you without resistance. This transparency demands stillness, not passive idleness, but active receptivity. It's the quiet awareness that reality is self-organizing, and your role is not to dictate its shape, but to recognize its rhythm. In this recognition, a different kind of power emerges, the power of coherence, subtle yet absolute. Imagine observing the movement of a flock of birds. There is no single leader giving orders, yet their flight forms precise geometry. Each bird senses micro-shifts in the field and adjusts instantly. The harmony exists because no one tries to control it. The same principle governs manifestation. Every intention you hold interacts with countless others within the greater field. When you release the need to control, you begin to feel the collective choreography guiding your path. Control isolates you from that intelligence. Surrender reconnects you to it. Control also distorts time perception. It makes the future feel like a destination to be reached rather than a frequency to be inhabited. The mind keeps measuring progress, checking signs, evaluating results. In doing so, it drags awareness out of coherence. The observer collapses possibilities prematurely, freezing the wave before it can fully unfold. The act of constant checking becomes an unintentional interference pattern, scattering the very energy it seeks to focus. In contrast, alignment with the field feels timeless. You stop monitoring the clock of manifestation because time itself dissolves into continuity. Each moment carries the seed of the next, and you sense creation as an ongoing emergence rather than an event. When you live in this awareness, control becomes unnecessary. You no longer need to force outcomes. You sense them forming within you before they take shape outside you. This shift does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means refining perception to distinguish between guidance and control. Guidance arises from coherence. It feels light, spontaneous, clear. Control arises from fragmentation. It feels heavy, repetitive, uncertain. When you follow guidance, action flows through you as if predetermined. You move without effort, and results appear as extensions of that movement. Releasing control is not a passive surrender to fate. It is an act of deep participation. It allows the field to reveal its intelligence through you. The less you interfere, the more precisely it can express. The field doesn't need your will to create. It needs your transparency. When your awareness becomes clear of insistence, the natural movement of the field becomes visible. Synchronicities align, timing perfects itself, and what once felt random begins to feel inevitable. The secret of quantum manifestation is not in learning how to command the universe, but in remembering that you are already embedded within its command. Control interrupts that remembering, surrender restores it. The mind may resist this truth because it dissolves the illusion of superiority. Yet liberation lies exactly there, in allowing life to breathe through you instead of forcing it to match your expectation. When you stop controlling, you don't lose direction, you regain rhythm. You start moving with the current instead of against it. The manifestation that follows is not a reward, but a reflection of coherence restored. The field has always been ready. It was only waiting for you to stop trying to steer what already knows where to go. A subtle tremor precedes every true shift, a moment where the momentum of wanting loses its grip and something deeper takes over. That tremor is not weakness. It's the sound of energy realigning. The field stops listening to your words and begins responding to your stillness. This is the inner pause, the interval between intention and materialization, where reality reorganizes itself in silence. It's not waiting, it's incubation. The pause feels like the world has stopped listening, yet it's the moment it listens most. Every layer of effort that once held your desire together begins to dissolve. The mind panics, searching for control, but the body senses something different, a soft expansion, as if the space around you thickens with invisible structure. Inside that quiet density, coherence begins to form. The pause doesn't delay manifestation, it prepares the vibration that will make it possible. Desire on its own is raw voltage, unstable, brilliant, unfocused. The pause refines it. It slows the current until the energy can find a pattern. What once rushed outward as demand starts folding inward as clarity. This reversal of direction is where power is born. Not the power of control, but the power of transparency. The ability to let the field move through you without distortion. In this transparency, the universe recognizes itself. The mind rarely tolerates this silence. It measures time by proof and equates stillness with loss. It asks for signs, for motion, for confirmation that effort still matters. But the field speaks in another language. Its communication is frequency, not evidence. Each second you resist the urge to fill the silence, your frequency sharpens. Each breath that accepts uncertainty becomes a declaration of coherence. The pause is not the absence of doing. It's doing at a different octave. Imagine a bow hovering above the string of a violin. No sound yet, only potential. The tension is alive but patient, waiting for precision. That instant before contact holds every note that could exist. The pause within you works the same way. It contains all outcomes before they collapse into one. To rush it is to cut the song short. To dwell in it is to let the note emerge in perfect tune with the field. This inner stillness also exposes what's unresolved. In the quiet, you start hearing the small interferences, the anxious thoughts, the inherited fears, the self-doubt that disguises itself as discipline. The pause amplifies them, not to punish, but to purify. The field cannot amplify incoherence. It shows you what doesn't belong so that you can release it. The silence becomes diagnostic. You don't analyze, you feel. The more you feel without editing, the faster the distortion dissolves. Resting inside that process requires trust that doesn't depend on proof. Trust that stillness has its own gravity, that creation is not linear, that reality is not waiting to be chased, it's waiting to be matched. In this trust, the pause turns electric. A low hum fills your awareness, as if something vast were forming just beyond perception. You stop asking if it will happen and start sensing how it's already happening. In that space, desire transforms. It no longer shouts, it vibrates. It no longer reaches outward, it radiates inward. The pause teaches the nervous system to exist without gripping. Breath deepens, muscles soften, thought quiets. What was once ambition becomes equilibrium. This is the threshold where wanting turns into readiness. The field recognizes readiness instantly because it mirrors coherence, not urgency. Stillness in this sense is not spiritual decorum, it's precise physics. By withdrawing projection, you stop collapsing probabilities prematurely. The wave remains intact, gathering data, aligning variables. This stabilization period allows reality to converge around the version of you that can sustain the manifestation. Without this phase, results may appear, but they won't hold. The pause ensures durability through alignment, not through will. To the mind, that may sound like surrender, but what happens here is not surrender in the passive sense. It's participation at a subtler level. You're no longer forcing the current, you're becoming its rhythm. Each breath synchronizes with the field's motion. Each thought loses edges and starts to shimmer instead of push. You begin to feel a gravitational pull toward what matches you, not as desire but as recognition. Silent power grows from this resonance. It doesn't need affirmation or strategy. It moves invisibly, rearranging reality through coherence. You'll notice it in the smallest things. Conversations that arrive at the right moment, opportunities that appear without planning, the sudden ease replacing old tension. This isn't magic, it's physics performed in stillness. The pause refines your broadcast until the universe can only respond in harmony. The longer you remain faithful to this quiet, the more authority you gain, not over the field, but within it. Authority, in its original sense, means the state of being the source. The pause restores that authorship. You stop asking the universe to deliver and start recognizing that creation was never external. You were always writing the script through your frequency. The silence only makes that authorship audible again. This inner pause, once feared, becomes sacred. It's the breathing chamber of manifestation, the still point that teaches you that doing less can mean generating more. In its depths, desire doesn't vanish, it matures. It becomes a signal of resonance free from tension, steady enough to shape matter without strain. To rest in the pause is to hold the universe at its most fertile point, not before creation, not after, but inside it. Nothing about that state is empty. It's saturated with potential so precise that sound itself would feel like an interruption. The moment you trust that silence, you realize manifestation never required movement. It required coherence so pure that even stillness becomes a creative act. Expectation is the mind's attempt to schedule the infinite. It measures possibility through the lens of control and disguises that measurement as hope. Yet beneath the polite surface of hope, there often hides tension, an unspoken deal with the universe. I will believe if you deliver soon. That quiet contract keeps you orbiting around what hasn't yet arrived. Presence, on the other hand, dissolves the orbit. It anchors consciousness in the only frequency where coherence can stabilize, now. The human mind is addicted to projection. It imagines fulfillment as a future event, a house to live in, a love to meet, a goal to reach. But the field doesn't read your calendar. It reads your vibration. Every time your awareness leans into the future, you step out of resonance with the coordinates of creation. The future, in quantum terms, is not a destination waiting for you. It is a frequency awaiting recognition. Expectation keeps you searching for it. Presence lets you match it. Presence is not an emotion. It's a state of coherence between observation and existence. It's the moment the observer stops narrating reality and begins feeling it. The body knows this state long before the mind agrees to it. There's an unmistakable shift. Breathing deepens. Perception widens. Colors sharpen. You stop interpreting and start participating. Each second feels self-sufficient, not because everything is perfect, but because nothing needs to be chased. The moment becomes enough to sustain awareness without projection. The irony is that presence does not destroy desire. It refines it. Desire without expectation becomes guidance rather than demand. It stops being a wound looking for closure and becomes a compass pointing toward coherence. The more present you become, the less your desires feel like gaps. They begin to feel like directions already unfolding within you. The future stops being something you wait for and starts being something you radiate. Expectation narrows possibility. It attaches shape and timeline to the unknown, filtering what the field can deliver. It tells the universe it must happen like this, at this pace, in this form. But presence removes the filter. It says, show me how this frequency wants to express. This surrender doesn't weaken creation, it multiplies its accuracy. The field responds to clarity, not insistence. Presence creates that clarity through coherence. The difficulty is that the mind believes expectation equals faith. It feels uncomfortable standing in the void without anticipating an outcome. But the void is not absence. It is potential in its rawest state. Presence lets you stand inside that potential without the need to define it. Expectation collapses it too early, forcing form before readiness. You can feel this difference. Expectation feels like leaning forward. Presence feels like standing upright in stillness while everything rearranges around you. To live without expectation is not detachment. It is full participation without manipulation. You taste life instead of trying to own it. You act without needing to measure the impact. The field, in turn, aligns effortlessly with this neutrality. Neutrality in quantum terms is not apathy. It is balance between polarities. It is the point where energy can flow without resistance. Expectation creates resistance because it adds friction, an emotional insistence that the present moment is incomplete. Consider the still surface of a lake. Throw a pebble of expectation into it, and ripples distort the reflection. The more you anticipate, the less clearly you perceive. But if you remain still, the surface mirrors the sky perfectly. Presence functions the same way. When you stop interfering, the field can reflect your frequency with accuracy. The reflection is what we call manifestation, but it's only possible when the surface is calm. This state of presence can't be achieved by command. You can't order yourself to be here now and expect silence. It's cultivated by attention, simple, honest attention to what is already occurring. Feel your breath, your heartbeat, the weight of your body, the subtle hum behind thoughts. Awareness of these sensations begins dissolving the illusion of separation between you and the moment. The more detailed your awareness, the less need you have for anticipation. In deep presence, you start to notice how time behaves differently. Minutes stretch. The urge to check progress fades. Small gestures, a hand resting, light moving across a wall, gain meaning beyond utility. Reality stops being background noise and becomes dialogue. This is the essence of unlocking. When you stop demanding that life reveal its plan and start realizing that you are the plan unfolding. The power of this state lies in its neutrality. Presence holds every possibility without preference. It doesn't demand that things change, it lets change happen through it. In this neutrality, emotion still moves, but it no longer defines direction. You feel sadness or joy, yet neither dictates your vibration. You remain clear, anchored, unfragmented. The field reads that coherence as stability, and stability accelerates manifestation more effectively than intensity ever could. Presence also dissolves the need for validation. Expectation feeds on proof. It wants signs, confirmations, synchronicities to reassure belief. Presence needs none of that. It is belief embodied. It knows creation not as theory but as sensation. The quieter your expectation becomes, the louder your frequency speaks. At that point, what you once called manifestation techniques start to feel redundant. You don't visualize, you inhabit. You don't ask, you express. When this shift occurs, the world mirrors it in subtle ways. Conversations become more aligned. Random encounters feel orchestrated. You stop wondering if the universe heard you because every moment answers you in some way. It's not about attracting anymore. It's about resonating. Presence doesn't pull things in. It unveils what was already surrounding you. Stillness becomes movement. Waiting becomes creation. Expectation transforms into observation. The entire paradigm of manifestation flips from reaching outward to radiating inward. Presence doesn't guarantee specific outcomes, but it guarantees coherence. And coherence always attracts the precise experiences that sustain it. The unlocking, then, is not about receiving more, but about perceiving more clearly that nothing was missing. To test this in your own field, notice your body right now. Is there any tension that wants to rush ahead? Any thought trying to predict what comes next? Breathe into that. Let awareness expand until the moment feels wide enough to hold everything. That expansion, that single breath of non-demand, is the essence of quantum alignment. And if this reflection resonates, Let it anchor through acknowledgement. Before you leave this space, pause, not to plan, not to analyze, but to affirm your own presence. Then, as a symbolic act of coherence, write one sentence below beginning with, "I am here." Let those words become a micro-manifestation of stillness, a digital echo of awareness meeting awareness. And if the rhythm of this exploration moved something in you, mark that with a simple gesture of appreciation, like this space as a signal to the field that presence, not expectation, is the true unlocking. Precision is not achieved through effort. It's born from harmony. The universe does not react to noise, it tunes to coherence. What most people call coincidence is the field responding to internal symmetry, a frequency so balanced that the outer world has no choice but to organize around it. When you reach this harmony, life begins to echo your inner tone with startling accuracy. You say less, yet more happens. You do less, yet everything aligns. The field isn't obeying you, it's recognizing you. Harmony begins in the body. The mind may believe it leads the process, but the body carries the actual tuning mechanism. Every heartbeat, every breath, every subtle electrical impulse communicates with the field. Thoughts alone are incomplete frequencies until they are embodied. This is why affirmations without felt resonance rarely manifest. The words may sound aligned, but if the body's tone carries anxiety, the field mirrors the dissonance instead of the intention. Real precision happens when thought, emotion, and physiology vibrate as one current. The most potent creators often appear unhurried. Their stillness isn't apathy, it's stability. They have trained their nervous systems to remain coherent under uncertainty. The world moves quickly around them, but internally they remain slow, exact. Their coherence acts as a stabilizing force within the collective field, influencing outcomes without visible action. Harmony does not need permission to influence. It is influence in its purest form. This inner harmony does not require perfection. It requires consistency of awareness. You can feel tension, sadness, even doubt without losing alignment, so long as awareness remains present. Emotion itself isn't interference. Resistance is. Harmony emerges not from suppressing emotion, but from allowing it to move through the body without distortion. When energy flows freely, it becomes music again, regardless of its tone. The field reads that flow as health, as truth, as coherence. Precision in the quantum field mirrors musical resonance. Strike a clear tone, and corresponding strings begin to vibrate. Strike a scattered chord, and the harmony disperses. Many spiritual seekers make the mistake of chasing high frequencies while neglecting stable frequencies. Yet stability is what allows the field to lock onto your signal. High energy without coherence is noise. Subtle energy with balance is instruction. The field follows precision, not volume. Harmony also means congruence between your outer choices and inner awareness. Every small decision sends a signal: what you eat, how you speak, what environments you remain in. These choices either reinforce coherence or introduce static. When your actions contradict your knowing, you experience what the field interprets as informational noise. It doesn't punish inconsistency, it simply mirrors uncertainty. The sharper the congruence, the faster the response. This doesn't mean controlling every detail of life. It means moving through life as if every detail mattered. Each gesture becomes an instrument of resonance. The way you close a door, the tone you use to say someone's name, the silence you hold before answering, all transmit data to the field. Nothing is trivial. Every movement of attention either strengthens or weakens your signal. The field is exquisitely sensitive. It listens to how you vibrate in the spaces between words. Harmony demands presence, but it also demands authenticity. Pretending to be at peace only layers noise over noise. The field perceives authenticity as coherence, even if the emotion is raw. If you admit "I am uncertain" with full awareness, that vibration is cleaner than a forced "I am fine." Precision doesn't come from pretending alignment, it comes from allowing truth to vibrate without denial. The field translates honesty faster than any technique. As inner harmony stabilizes, synchronicities become ordinary. You think of someone and they reach out. You intend to begin a new path, and a door opens with exact timing. To the linear mind, this appears miraculous. To the coherent field, it's simple feedback. The system is responding to resonance, matching your internal structure with external opportunity. Harmony collapses the distance between thought and form because no contradiction delays transmission. The beauty of this state is that it feels effortless. There's no striving to make things happen. Manifestation begins to feel more like choreography than conquest. You move with reality rather than against it. Each action becomes an expression of coherence already established. The anxiety of getting it right dissolves, replaced by an intuitive rhythm guiding your next step. You sense what to do before the question arises. That is precision, not control, but pre-alignment. This harmonic state also alters perception of time. Urgency fades, replaced by impeccable timing. You no longer rush because you realize precision operates beyond linear speed. You arrive exactly where you should, exactly when coherence allows. The field arranges encounters, events, and even delays with mathematical accuracy. The pause before a meeting, the random detour, the brief silence, all serve as micro-adjustments aligning your trajectory. Harmony makes the unpredictable feel intentional. Maintaining this state requires tenderness toward yourself. The slightest self-judgment fractures coherence faster than external chaos ever could. The field doesn't require you to be flawless. It requires you to be whole. Wholeness means integrating every note of your humanity into the song, not muting the dissonant ones. Precision comes from inclusion, not exclusion. Every part of you must be allowed to vibrate, otherwise the signal remains incomplete. When the inner orchestra finds balance, life outside begins to play in key. The field listens not just to what you think, but to the emotional timbre of your awareness. The clearer that tone, the more directly the universe mirrors it. Precision, therefore, is not mastery over the field, it's mastery within yourself. The world is not responding to what you demand, it's resonating with what you have become. The harmony that makes the field respond is already within you, waiting for recognition. Every quiet breath is an opportunity to retune, every pause an invitation to listen. As your awareness settles into this inner rhythm, you'll notice life adjusting its tempo to match yours. That's the sign of true precision, the moment you stop chasing alignment and start hearing it breathing back through everything around you. The moment arrives quietly, after the striving, after the stillness, after every method has lost its urgency. You can feel the field leaning closer, yet something inside holds back, afraid to let go of the final thread of control. That trembling edge between holding and yielding is where real surrender begins. Not as resignation, but as a deliberate descent into trust so complete that thought itself bows to awareness. The air feels thicker, alive. Reality watches, waiting for you to stop reaching and finally open. This kind of surrender is a precision act. It doesn't mean folding into passivity or abandoning desire. It's the choice to stop translating the unknown through fear. You no longer need to bargain with the universe for results. You stop measuring progress and start allowing intelligence larger than you to arrange it. The field recognizes this instantly. It feels the difference between exhaustion and release, between pretending to trust and actually dissolving the need to control. The instant the difference crystallizes, recognition begins. The field mirrors coherence back to its source. In the first moments, surrender feels almost physical. The heartbeat slows, thought loses edges, and the body seems to widen beyond its own boundaries. Energy that was once clenched in the solar plexus begins to move again, not outward in demand, but inward in return. The stillness that follows doesn't feel empty, it hums. You sense life reorganizing itself through you, subtle but undeniable, like an unseen tide pulling everything toward order. The mind will try to interrupt. It will whisper about lost momentum, warn that you're doing nothing, insist that creation requires more input. Those thoughts are simply echoes of an old rhythm. Each time you hear them, and stay open instead of contracting, the field records that choice. It interprets the silence not as absence, but as signal. What looks like inaction from the outside is actually the highest form of calibration, the nervous system aligning with the frequency of infinite possibility. Surrender reveals that creation never needed your control, only your clarity. Expectation sends mixed messages, but surrender speaks in pure tone. The field is precise. It reads the quality of energy, not the quantity of effort. As soon as your vibration carries no contradiction, the reflection becomes immediate. Outcomes stop feeling like responses and start feeling like continuations of your own breath. You sense that manifestation is not arrival, it's extension. A shift like this changes the architecture of perception. You no longer look for signs, you feel them unfolding in real time. Every small coincidence carries intelligence. The exact words spoken by a stranger, the impulse to change direction on a walk, the delay that rearranges your timing, all become fluent messages from the field. The more transparent you are, the more direct the conversation becomes. Life starts speaking your language because it's translating your vibration, not your logic. True surrender carries discipline. It's not drifting into apathy, it's holding awareness steady enough for the field to write through you. Each thought or emotion that tries to grasp is met with openness, not resistance. This awareness refines itself into listening so deep that intuition becomes unmistakable. Intuition is not a mysterious voice, it's resonance recognized before translation. In surrender, that recognition becomes instantaneous. Power reveals itself here in paradoxical form. The less you push, the stronger the current becomes. The less you speak, the clearer your command. You begin to feel that you are no longer sending signals, but radiating coherence continuously. The field responds to that constancy with mathematical precision. Reality doesn't need convincing, it simply echoes. Manifestation becomes less about summoning and more about remembering that everything you ever asked for was orbiting your frequency, waiting for permission to synchronize. The surrender that activates recognition also asks for truth. You can't fake coherence. The field senses hesitation immediately. Surrender requires honesty with what you still cling to, the fears of loss, the hidden expectations of timing, the old images of success. Each attachment is a knot in the current. By naming it inwardly, you loosen it. Nothing needs to be forced away. Awareness itself unties the rope. The moment you stop pretending to be fearless, fear releases its grip. The field doesn't demand perfection, it only mirrors transparency. This transparency turns gratitude into a living vibration. Gratitude stops being a mental list and becomes the body's natural response to participation. You start feeling thankful for the unfolding itself, not because it gives you what you want, but because it keeps showing you where alignment strengthens. Even delays carry grace. Even endings reveal symmetry. You no longer divide experiences into good or bad. You read everything as feedback, and that neutrality is what keeps coherence intact. As surrender deepens, humility rises. Not the kind that shrinks, but the kind that expands. You recognize that you were never orchestrating reality, you were translating it. The wave was always in motion. You simply learned how to stop interrupting it. Every event begins to feel personal and cosmic at once, as if life had been designed around your frequency all along. This recognition is not sentimental, it's structural. The field is showing you your reflection in real time, proof that coherence doesn't need force, it only needs permission. That permission is what conscious surrender gives. You stop managing energy and start inhabiting it. You sense your boundaries dissolving into participation with everything: light, air, conversation, silence. Creation becomes symphonic. The player and the instrument, the note and the resonance become indistinguishable. You've entered the level of manifestation where the act itself disappears, replaced by flow too complete to name. Reality recognizes you here, not as a petition, but as presence. The mirror turns clear. Every particle, every rhythm, every coincidence aligns to the signature of a consciousness that has stopped resisting its own nature. You realize there was never separation between you and the field, only degrees of remembering. And it's in that remembering, that final surrender, where quantum recognition blooms, not as a miracle, but as inevitability. Some truths don't announce themselves, they settle in quietly, like a frequency you can feel before you can name it. Silent confidence is one of those truths. It is not born from positive thinking or proof. It arises from coherence so steady that no external evidence is required. It is the state in which you no longer question whether the field will respond because you are the response. The signal has already been sent, received, and reflected before thought can catch up. This kind of confidence doesn't roar. It hums beneath the surface, grounded in the body rather than the intellect. You can sense it in posture, in the rhythm of breath, in the way attention moves through space. Nothing is forced, yet everything feels deliberate. Silent confidence is not arrogance. It is intimacy with the field. It's the recognition that manifestation doesn't happen to you but through you. The distinction changes everything. Most people try to earn confidence by accumulating proof. They wait for signs, outcomes, results to reassure belief. But that version of confidence is conditional. It's dependent on fluctuation. Silent confidence, however, emerges from constancy. It's what remains when proof becomes irrelevant. It doesn't need confirmation because it rests in direct awareness of coherence. The body feels it as a quiet warmth expanding outward, steady and self-contained. In quantum language, confidence is coherence made conscious. The field doesn't respond to words. It responds to tone, and tone is shaped by certainty. Certainty here doesn't mean dogma. It means frequency without contradiction. When thought, emotion, and embodiment vibrate in unison, the signal becomes unmissable. The field reads it as a completed equation. Silent confidence, therefore, is not psychological. It's mathematical. It's resonance without interference. This state rarely follows effort. It follows surrender. It arises the moment striving ends and embodiment begins. You stop thinking about trust and begin being trust. The shift is subtle but total. The mind quiets and energy starts to circulate differently. Downward, grounded, integrated. Your awareness roots itself in the body instead of hovering in projection. From there, manifestation becomes magnetic, not mechanical. You don't need to direct outcomes, they orbit naturally towards stability. The remarkable thing about silent confidence is how little it depends on emotion. You might feel neutral, even calm to the point of emptiness, yet creation continues to unfold with precision. That neutrality is not apathy, it's alignment. Emotion, in its reactive form, is often noise, beautiful but erratic. Silent confidence replaces volatility with rhythm. It's a steady hum of knowing that the field recognizes as permission to proceed. This quiet assurance changes how you interpret delay or resistance. What once felt like rejection begins to feel like refinement. You understand that the field isn't denying your intention. It's synchronizing variables to maintain coherence. Impatience becomes irrelevant because you can sense movement beneath stillness. The absence of visible progress no longer shakes you. It confirms that the system is calibrating. Confidence remains unshaken because it no longer depends on sequence. You can witness this confidence in nature. A seed doesn't question whether it will become a tree. The intelligence within it contains both blueprint and patience. Its stillness is not doubt, it's knowing encoded as form. The same architecture exists within consciousness. Once intention is set from genuine alignment, the outcome is inevitable. It's only a matter of unfolding. Silent confidence is the awareness of that inevitability felt in real time. The paradox is that the quieter this confidence becomes, the more tangible its effects. People sense it in your presence before you speak. Situations reorganize around your energy. What used to require explanation now happens by implication. The field reads your frequency and adjusts accordingly. This is why the most magnetic individuals often appear understated. Their silence carries structure. Their stillness transmits information faster than words ever could. To cultivate this confidence is not to practice assertion, but to deepen receptivity. You listen until noise fades, until every thought of doubt dissolves into observation. The more you inhabit the present, the more the body becomes a resonant chamber of certainty. Confidence ceases to be a choice. It becomes atmosphere. The field doesn't need you to repeat affirmations. It just needs you to maintain tone. Once that tone is stable, the echo appears in form. Silent confidence also redefines humility. It doesn't boast, yet it doesn't shrink. It moves with quiet authority, born from participation in something vast. You recognize yourself as a fragment of universal intelligence, not superior to it, not separate from it. This humility keeps the signal clean. Egoic noise, comparison, doubt, validation-seeking drops away. What remains is precision so pure that even minimal actions produce exponential resonance. The emotional signature of this state is peace, not the peace that avoids conflict, but the peace that renders conflict unnecessary. You no longer argue with reality. You observe its unfolding and adjust your vibration like a conductor fine-tuning a symphony. Each interaction becomes part of the rhythm of coherence. Nothing feels random because nothing stands outside your participation. At its deepest point, silent confidence turns into recognition. You realize the field is not something you access, it's what you are made of. The observer and the observed have merged. Confidence is no longer a quality you possess. It's the natural byproduct of existing as awareness itself. From here, manifestation feels less like effort and more like continuation, an infinite loop of signal and reflection. In this space, life becomes elegantly simple. You speak less, sense more, and act only when the movement feels inevitable. The universe listens not to volume but to coherence, and coherence always recognizes its own name. Silent confidence is that name, the password the field never forgets. It's the frequency of remembrance, the tone that says, "I am already the thing I sought to create." Everything that seemed separate was only a reflection of your own vibration waiting to be seen. The chase dissolves, the noise quiets, and what remains is awareness, still, lucid, whole. Manifestation stops being a task and becomes recognition. You were never outside the field, never apart from the frequency you tried to summon. The wave and the observer have always been the same pulse of creation, meeting itself in form. If you felt this resonance unfolding through every word, write, "I am remembering," in the comments, so I know you reached the end of this journey. And if this exploration awakened something in you, subscribe to stay close to this frequency. There is more waiting to emerge from the silence we now share.